They thought pushing you away was a statement of your worth, but it was actually a divine setup for your elevation. Sometimes, when people reject you, it's not because you lack value, it's because your presence disrupts their comfort, exposes their complacency, or even intimidates their spirit. The very people who tried to disqualify you were unknowingly participating in God's plan to separate you, to sanctify you, and to prepare you for something far greater than they could comprehend. Your isolation wasn't abandonment, it was orchestration. You were being protected from environments that could have poisoned your potential, from voices that would have silenced your vision, and from energies that couldn't go where God was taking you. You weren't meant to grow in soil that couldn't recognize your roots. You had to be uprooted and replanted by the divine so that your purpose could flourish without being suffocated. When everyone turned their backs, when they laughed, when they gossiped, when they chose others over you, what you didn't see in that moment was the divine shield forming around you. God was pulling you away from counterfeit connections. He was removing distractions disguised as friendships and illusions that would have derailed your destiny. The tears you cried in secret, the pain of being overlooked, the confusion of feeling abandoned, none of it was wasted. Heaven was watching. The separation wasn't a punishment, it was the proving ground for your anointing. You were being trained in silence, taught through solitude, strengthened through struggle, and refined in the fire. What looked like rejection was really redirection. What felt like failure was preparation. You weren't rejected because you were weak. You were rejected because you were chosen. Your soul carried a weight, a presence, a calling that others couldn't interpret. They saw your glow, but didn't know the oil it took to shine. They sensed something different, but didn't understand that difference was divinely crafted. You weren't just another person walking through life. You were carrying a sacred mission, and sometimes people can't stand what they can't control or understand. Their inability to handle your presence was confirmation that you were never meant to stay among them. God needed you out of the crowd so he could speak to you in the quiet. He needed to remove the noise so you could hear the instruction. He had to close certain doors so you wouldn't walk through the wrong ones. While you were grieving their absence, heaven was celebrating your obedience. You didn't retaliate. You didn't fight to be seen. You didn't beg to belong. Instead, you chose the narrow path, the lonely road, the unseen journey, and that's what made you ready. That's what proved your heart. That's what aligned you with the realm of the chosen. Because not everyone can endure that kind of pain and not turn bitter. Not everyone can be crushed and still produce oil. Not everyone can be left out and still remain faithful. But you did, and that's what made you different. That's what made you dangerous to the enemy. That's what made you a threat to every room that couldn't contain your future. They thought they were burying you, but they were planting you, and now the season has changed. What was once hidden is about to be revealed. The one they mocked is the one they'll marvel at. The one they left behind is the one they'll chase after. But you know now, it was never about them. It was never about being accepted by the masses. It was about being chosen by the one. You weren't designed for popularity. You were designed for purpose. And sometimes purpose requires separation. You had to walk through betrayal to be positioned for blessing. You had to sit in silence so your voice could carry authority. You had to endure false judgment so the truth could shine brighter through your life. The rejection built your character, it shaped your discernment, it clarified your calling. You now see with new eyes. You hear with greater wisdom. You discern with sharper clarity. You recognize what's real and what's counterfeit, what's divine and what's disguised. That level of vision doesn't come through comfort. It comes through pain. And though it hurt, though you wondered if you were forgotten, you now realize you were being remembered in the highest places. You were being equipped for something heavy, something holy, something historic. And that required divine handling. That required protection from premature exposure. That required rejection that felt like a wound but was actually a wing being developed. Because the chosen can't fly in cages built by limited minds. The chosen must be released, must be elevated, must be separated so they can soar at altitudes that others can't reach. So while they were laughing, while they were counting you out, While they were choosing popularity over purpose, you were being elevated behind the scenes. You were gaining wisdom, you were growing in faith, you were shedding layers that couldn't go with you into your next level. Every no, every closed door, every whispered lie had all pushed you deeper into divine alignment. And now you carry something weighty, you carry something rare, you carry something holy. You are not who you used to be, you are not where they left you, and soon the very ones who once rejected you will have to watch you rise, not from a place of revenge, but from a posture of resurrection. They didn't just reject a person, they rejected a vessel God handpicked. And now that vessel is ready to walk in. They didn't understand what they had when you were right in front of them. You were present, loyal, authentic, and pure-hearted, but they treated you like you were common, as if your energy was replaceable and your presence didn't matter. They took your kindness for weakness, your silence for lack of wisdom, and your compassion for naivety. But what they didn't realize was that you were carrying a divine presence, a rare spirit, something sacred that could not be imitated or substituted. You showed up with grace, you offered genuine connection, you were there even when you were overlooked, but they couldn't see it. They were blinded by their own pride, distracted by noise, deceived by the shallow, and fooled by what glitters. They chose temporary satisfaction over long-term blessing, illusion over authenticity, and now they're living with the consequences of that decision. You were the one who spoke life into dead situations, the one who poured into people even when you were running on empty, the one who stayed silent while others slandered you, choosing peace over pettiness. They didn't understand that having access to you was a privilege, not a right. You weren't just a friend, a sibling, a partner, a co-worker. You were a light in human form. You walked into rooms and shifted atmospheres. You offered wisdom beyond your years, discernment rooted in spiritual depth, and energy that healed even when you were hurting, but they dismissed all of it. They grew comfortable with your presence and assumed you'd always be there. They didn't think your absence would matter. They thought they had time. They thought they could replace you. But now they're sitting in the emptiness your absence created, and it's deafening. They scroll through old messages, they revisit memories, they replay conversations in their heads, wishing they had treated you better, wishing they hadn't been so arrogant, so blind, so careless. The same people who said you were too much now wish they had more of you. The same ones who told others you were doing too much now miss the way you showed up for them. They once laughed at your silence, now it haunts them. Your peace speaks louder than your pain ever did. Your disappearance is louder than any argument you could have had. Because it's not just that you left. It's that you left with grace, without bitterness, without warning. And now they're left to sit in the reality that they misjudged someone they were supposed to cherish. You never needed to seek revenge. You didn't have to clap back. You just had to stay true to your spirit, stay obedient to the calling, and trust that what was real would eventually be revealed. And now the scales are falling from their eyes. Now they see the value of what they rejected. Now they realize that you were never the problem. You were the blessing they weren't ready for, but your worth was never dependent on their recognition. Your glow didn't start when they left. It just became more visible. And now the same ones who dismissed your light are trying to chase its reflection. But it's too late, because the season has shifted. Your spirit has ascended, your assignment has evolved, and where you're going, not everyone can follow. They look at the places you used to be and feel the void. They hear your name in rooms where you're no longer mentioned. They feel your absence in moments they never thought they'd face alone, and it hits differently now. Because back then, you were accessible, you were available, you were open, but they misused that grace, they wasted that access. They drained your presence and mocked your stillness, and now they can't rewind time. They can't undo the damage, they can't say the words, they can't choose the counterfeit they picked over you, and it's not just guilt, it's regret, it's soul, deep recognition that they mishandled a divine connection. And that realization cuts in ways they never imagined. The same people who watched you suffer in silence are now screaming in silence. They smile in public but cry behind closed doors, because it's not just that they lost you. It's that they lost the version of themselves that existed when you were around. You brought out the best in them. You inspired them, you challenged them to be better, but they were too caught up in ego, comparison, and comfort to see it. They thought you'd never walk away. They assumed you'd always reach back, but God had a different plan. God saw your tears. God saw the way you kept giving even when it cost you peace. God saw how they laughed at your loyalty, and God decided it was time to reposition you, not as punishment to them, but as protection for you. Now they're searching, not just through social media or conversations. They're searching spiritually, trying to find what they lost, trying to fill the hole your presence once covered. But what they're realizing is that your energy isn't something that can be found again. It was divine, it was tailored, it was purposed for a season they mishandled, and there's no going back. There's no replacing a soul that was sent by heaven. There's no duplicating a frequency that carried healing, love, discernment, and power. And now that you're gone, everything feels different. They can't laugh the same. They can't connect the same. They can't pretend anymore, because what they once had access to is no longer within reach, and they know they let something sacred slip right through their fingers. You could have returned with fire in your eyes and revenge in your heart. You had every reason to come back and prove everyone wrong, to throw their rejection in their faces, to remind them of how they treated you when they thought you had no value. But that's not who you are. You weren't built to seek revenge. You were built to carry revelation. The pain they caused you didn't produce hatred. It produced purpose. The betrayal didn't harden you. It sharpened you. You grew in grace while they remained stuck in guilt. You evolved while they stayed chained to their ego. What they don't understand is that your return isn't for attention. It's not to show off or to make noise. It's to fulfill what was always written about you. It's to step fully into your divine identity without hesitation, without apology, without needing validation from anyone who couldn't see you before. You didn't just survive the silence. You were transformed in it. In the quiet places where no one was cheering for you, where no one was clapping, where you were alone with your thoughts and tears and questions, something holy was being birthed inside you. You didn't use your time away to plot or to pout. You used it to align, you healed, you surrendered, you listened, you obeyed, you gained clarity about who you are and what you were sent to do. And now that clarity shines through your presence. It radiates through your peace. It shows up in the way you speak, in the way you walk, in the way you move with intention and authority. You're not here to impress. You're here to impact. You're not chasing people, applause, or platforms. You're answering a call that's bigger than you, louder than pain, and deeper than validation. They'll expect the old version of you to return, the one they could manipulate, minimize, or overlook. But that version no longer exists. You outgrew the box they tried to keep you in. You broke free from the labels they placed on you, and now your presence alone is a revelation to them. It reminds them that people evolve, that favor finds the faithful. That purpose doesn't die just because others deny it. You didn't need their approval then, and you certainly don't need it now. You're moving with a new kind of confidence, not one that's loud or arrogant, but one that's rooted in truth. You know who you are now, you understand your worth, you know what you carry, and because of that, your mere presence convicts the spaces that once rejected you. You've returned not to be seen, but to be light. Not to dominate, but to serve. Not to correct the past, but to walk boldly into your future. You're no longer moved by applause or wounded by silence. You've been refined in fire. You've been trained by experience. You've been tested through isolation, and now that you're back, you're not seeking recognition. You're revealing what was hidden all along. What they missed wasn't just a person, it was a portal, a connection to something sacred, something heaven sent. You carried healing, wisdom, favor, and insight that could have transformed their lives, but they couldn't see it then. Now they watch in awe, some in regret, as you embody everything they never expected and everything they tried to suppress. They thought your absence would go unnoticed, that your silence would be a sign of defeat. But it was never defeat. It was development. You didn't disappear to escape. You disappeared to evolve. You were never running from them. You were running toward your calling. And now that you've stepped into alignment, everything about you feels different. Your energy has shifted. Your presence has matured. Your voice carries weight. Your decisions carry wisdom. And your walk carries authority. And when you re-enter the spaces that once mishandled you, you don't carry bitterness. You carry revelation. You don't need to announce it. You don't need to say a word. The elevation speaks for itself. The peace you radiate is proof. The clarity in your eyes tells the full story of transformation. You didn't come back to remind them of their failure. You came back to fulfill your purpose. You came back to be a living testimony of what God can do with someone the world discarded. You came back to show that rejection is often the doorway to redirection, and redirection is often the birthplace of destiny. You are the evidence that favor isn't based on status, approval, or appearance, it's based on obedience. And because you remained faithful, because you didn't fold under pressure, because you stayed grounded even in pain, you are now walking in a level of power that can't be denied. And it's not loud, it's not flashy. It's undeniable, unshakable, and unstoppable. It's the quiet power of someone who knows who they are and whose they are. You could have let the pain make you small. You could have responded to their rejection with rage. You could have tried to prove a point. But you chose to become the point. You chose to embody everything they said you couldn't be, not to spite them, but to honor the truth that was always in you. You were never what they said. You were never limited by their perception. You were never defined by their rejection. And now that you're back, every step you take is a declaration that grace wins, favor flows, and purpose cannot be buried. They thought they'd silenced your story, but your very existence continues to speak louder than ever. You were never forgotten, never forsaken, never without purpose. What you endured in silence became the foundation of your strength. What they thought was your breaking point was really your becoming. Every rejection, every closed door, every whispered lie. They were all stepping stones that led you here. You didn't rise to seek revenge. You rose to fulfill destiny. You didn't return to prove them wrong. You returned to prove that you were right all along, to yourself, to the heavens, and to the calling that never stopped pulling you forward. The city that once turned its back on you now feels the weight of your absence. But you walk forward not with bitterness but with peace. You carry something sacred now. You don't need validation. You are the evidence. And those who once overlooked you will watch you step into rooms they tried to lock you out of, not by force, but by favor. You are the revelation they never saw coming. Thank you for listening, for showing up, for growing with grace through your pain. To every chosen, one who felt cast aside, misunderstood, or doubted, your time is now. Keep shining, keep walking, keep rising. God bless you. Stay strong, stay grounded, and never forget. Your value was never based on who saw it. It was always based on who sent you. Thank you, goodbye, until next time.